I see what ho, chaps and chappets, Game Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say we are now taking a look at 10 big changes in The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D, the rather exciting upcoming title on Nintendo 3DS.
We most certainly are.
Yes, indeed, fellows, I dare say we were fortunate enough to get early access to this game, and so we are showing you here, taken straight from the 3DS, the 10 biggest things we've noticed during our first couple of hours with the game.
We are, so the chaps and chappets out there, as they're watching this, are actually seeing footage from the game that we've played.
Indeed, and I dare say it really is looking superb. Just the first point to take note of here, fellows, is the graphics, and as you can see, they are looking very nice and sharp there.
Well, they most certainly are, yes, of course. Big thing there, putting it now on the 3DS, the whole game, and of course a lot of people were very excited about the graphics, and it's looking very, very good in what they've done with it.
I think so. Certainly we're seeing some nice, vibrant colours there as well, and many of the blotchy, muddy textures from the old N64 version of the game have now been replaced with nicer, sharper variants. Plus, of course, if you're playing on Nintendo 3DS, you're going to get the full 3D experience here.
Most certainly, and that's a very good thing that they've added to that, which will make the game vastly improved from what we saw before on 64.
I think so, and much more immersive. Indeed, I can say from playing the game, it is a lot more satisfying and rewarding to play now with these improved visuals really complementing the famous cult sort of classic flavour and feel of the game,
yes.
I think.
Yes.
So as you can see, the intro sequence is there. Now, there are a couple of points also aside from the graphics that we have been noticing, and do indeed, fails, expect this game to be slightly different from the classic you know and love. So, of course, we're going to outline for you what exactly Nintendo have been doing, and indeed, I do recall them saying they did make some changes, old chap, so we shouldn't be surprised to see these.
Well, most certainly, yes indeed. Of course, the graphics are a very important part of it, taking this game from the 64 onto the 3DS. So I think what we can see here, they've done a good job, and I think that they needed to do a good job because the fans are going to expect that, certainly.
Oh, certainly as regards the graphics, indeed the fans would expect quite an improvement, and they've had the Ocarina of Time engine to work on for this game, which it's clearly been based on. Yes. I think they've done a very good job, But just getting away from the graphics now, onto the gameplay side of things,
right.
One of the first things you may notice about this game, videos, is when you pop along to Clocktown for the first time, certain things are different. Namely, I'm talking different locations.
Ah, yes indeed. They've been fiddling around, and I think I remember them saying that they're not going to be changing too much in terms of the actual game itself.
And the difficulty, they said.
Yes, they did say that, but it seems that they have actually been tinkering around with a few surprises, which we shouldn't see as a negative thing. I think perhaps it could be rather exciting.
It's quite exciting in a way, old chap, but certainly, as you may know, Phileas, one of the important quest lines during this game is in fact the bombers.
Yes, indeed, it most certainly is, and of course, where they are located.
Catching the said bombers. Now, if those of you who have played the N64 version may recall, there used to be a bomber in a certain part of the town atop a building with some kind of chicken or cuckoo near him. Now, of course, the cuckoo would make a right ruckus, giving away the location of the bomber, and he might also jump down onto the floor. Now, there was also another bomber, I believe, on the far side of North Clocktown, hiding behind a tree. However, I need to tell you, fellows, those two bombers are not where you might expect to find them now. They've gone, in fact, I say.
Well, most certainly, and that's the thing. Now, just before we go any further with that, for those that might not be sure, anyone that's listening, what are those bombers? What are they for?
The bombers are, of course, the, shall we say, the gang, or the kids' gang of Clocktown, and they do various good deeds and nice things. They have the Secret Society of Justice, they help out the citizens of the town, etc., and so forth, whilst masquerading as some kind of pack of brats or something, a gang, you'll see. If you will.
I see.
But
right.
They're not really bad, they're quite good, actually. But if you wish to get past the bomber's quest, of course, you have to firstly find where they're all hiding, and you won't be able to advance in the game until you've done that.
Now, I was just going to say that, so you can't actually go, as you just said, beyond that point until you found them then.
That's right, because you need to access the bomber's hideout for a certain item that allows you to avert destruction during that part of the game. So, therefore, you're going to have to find out where the locations are, where they're hiding, in order to learn the secret password, as you may recall. But as I said before, Vales, they are not any longer in the same place.
No, indeed. Now, we went off to try and find them, and expecting them to be there, and they weren't there.
We had no end of trouble, old chap. I just span round Clocktown for ages as Deku Link trying to find them.
Most certainly, they weren't there. Of course, you can't go further beyond that point without finding them. So what's going on? Maybe we've just got a glitch going on here or something, but it wasn't a glitch. And in fact, well, they were somewhere else. In fact, they were hiding.
They were hiding in a very, shall we say, unexpected place. And I checked all the guides videos. I thought perhaps it's because it's night time. Maybe they appear at a different time of day or night, but it was all to no avail because this time they really have moved. Now, buddy, we don't want to spoil this for anyone, so if you are listening out there, what do you say, buddy? What should they do, old chap?
Well, I think if you're listening now and you don't want it, I want to find out on the day when I get it or whenever, just plug your ears now, and because we're not going to tell you exactly where they are, but we're just going to tell you a little bit about it. So plug your ears now and say you won't hear.
That's right. Now, of course, the bombers this time, videos, the two bombers I mentioned earlier, the one in North Clocktown and the one on the building, they are hiding inside boxes.
Most certainly they are. Now, I mean...
Is it Snake, old chap?
Well, that's what I thought. It's Snake there, for goodness sake. I mean, we're playing Majora's Mask 3D, and all of a sudden Snake's there in the middle of the street.
I tell you, Vales, the last thing I expected to see in Majora's Mask 3D was a Snake reference, but it appears that's exactly what this is. We've got two bombers.
They'll be smoking next.
They're hiding in boxes. I'm surprised they're not puffing on cigars or cigarettes, old chap.
Well, exactly, but they're hiding in these, you see, and you have to find them.
That's right.
Before you can go forward.
Now,
you don't know where exactly they are, so you're still going to have to find the boxes anyway.
We shan't give you the exact locations, although perhaps you might have seen where one or two of them are from the footage so far, but in any case, videos, their exact locations now are... well, they're inside boxes, I say. So that's all we're going to give you, but certainly a rather large change there, which might catch some people off guard.
Well, frankly, I like the idea of the whole thing, because what Nintendo have done here is they said, right, they've thought of the fans, I think, and they said, right, the fans are going to go in and play this game. Perhaps they've played it many times before. They've gone in, they're going to go in and play it, and all of a sudden they think, oh, I just go here, here, and here, and it's not there. So it adds a little bit element of surprise and fun, I think, to the game.
I certainly think it does.
I don't think... they haven't necessarily changed the story of the game, but of course they've changed bits and pieces to make it more interesting to play, and I think that's the right way to go.
I think so, and of course also I understand they've changed some locations of stray fairies, boss tactics, etc. and so forth, but perhaps that's for another time. What we want to move on to next is a rather interesting element concerning, shall we say, the way a certain scene is handled. And I mean, this sort of thing will be very important for fans of the cult of classic game, and particularly the overall atmosphere of creepiness and impending doom that it brought, you'll see.
Most certainly. Yes, it certainly will be indeed, and I believe it involves Deku Link.
It does, old boy. Now, as you may know, Deku Link during the first sequence of the game has to wait outside the clock tower for it to open, and then at midnight on the eve of the carnival, he has to pop up the old stairs and go and see the rather nasty Skull Kid, who's, shall we say, just hovering there beneath the impending moon.
Most certainly, yes, he does, and of course, if you've played the game before, you'll know what happens there, and his reaction, etc., so forth.
That's right. In the original N64 version of the game, he just sort of stares up at this just vast, unstoppable object crashing down towards the town, and the overall feeling, he's completely helpless. I mean, you just feel sorry for him. He's just staring at this thing. There's nothing he can do at all, old chap. It's going to fall in the town, and he's going to die, basically.
Well, yes, indeed, and as you just said there, you get that feel from it when you play it. He's just looking at it, and it's just awe, as you would expect, really. He's just stuck there looking at it, and, oh no, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? Oh no!
I know that the moon's falling, and to make matters worse, he's been turned into some helpless little Deku scrub, and it's really quite a sad scene. But this time, in the 3DS version, things are just a slight bit different, and I think it makes a big change, old chap.
Yes, indeed. I think it does, actually. I think it changes perhaps the way you feel about it.
All the actors are here, all the regular cast is in the right place, but Deku Link this time, instead of just sort of staring helplessly, he's actually in a bouncing sort of battle stance. And if you ask me, that really lightens the whole mood, old chap.
Well, yes, I think he's sort of looking at it, he's recognising it, he knows it's there, but he's making this move, as you say, sort of like he's saying, right, okay, I'm raring to go, I see what you're doing, but now I want to attack you and get it. And perhaps it conveys to the player rather more, or rather not being scary and sort of awesome and oh dear, what's going to happen, but rather, right, okay, let's go. Perhaps it takes away a little bit from the sort of, the sort of eeriness of the game. Yes, impending doom, as you say.
That's right. I mean, the whole feel of the first game was very much the moon's going to crash, you can't stop it. I mean, the Skull Kid said, just try to stop it, you know, it's impossible. But of course, down there, Deku Link now is sort of bouncing around saying, hey, let's go.
Yes, indeed, yes.
I just don't know.
So I wonder why they're trying to add a sort of different flavour to it.
Certainly it has changed the flavour slightly for Nils, and of course it's not just there, it's also elsewhere in the game that we've seen minor changes going on.
Well, they certainly have.
Yes, indeed. Now, for example, another change they've made, we can certainly say for sure, is they've introduced, as we first saw in Ocarina of Time, the Sheikah Stones.
Yes, indeed. Now, these Sheikah stones are actually new. As you quite rightly say, they've been in Ocarina of Time, but not in Majora's Mask.
That's right.
And so they're a new addition and completely, different to the last game.
Now, these Sheikah stones are, of course, bouncing and very brightly coloured red and green gossip stones, basically, and they have a small opening inside them, whereupon you can crawl inside and get tips on what to do next if you're stuck. So we are talking hand-holding extraordinaire here, old chap.
So, well, perhaps they've done that for those that haven't played the game before.
Well,
because they're thinking, well, we're going to sell a load more to people who haven't played the game before, Majora's Mask. So they're thinking perhaps it's a good way to guide them along, maybe.
Well, I don't know, old chap. Certainly, as you may know, indeed, in the first version of the game, there were no Sheikah stones, and you were basically on your own, and you had this whole feeling of being in a foreign, hostile land with no one to help you, and it really was part of the game's character. But again, we've got here these Sheikah stones, which can, as you say, guide new players through the game if they wish.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure I'm for that, old boy, but certainly, perhaps some players, on the other hand, may appreciate it and say, well, this is very, very handy, because otherwise I'd be stuck, you'll say.
Well, yes, I'm hearing what you're saying there. Yes, there is the one element there, one side of the coin, as it were, it can guide them along and show them what to do. But of course, on the other side of the coin, if you're just in the game, it helps you become perhaps a little bit more immersed. If you don't have someone or something suddenly popping up saying, this is what you do, you feel a bit more immersed, a bit more, right in the game. You're not sure what to do. Challenged, etc.
Yes.
So perhaps that, I don't know what the chaps and chappets think about that, whether they think that's a good idea or not so good, they prefer to have it in or out, we don't know.
Well,
There's no.
Either way, folks, it's there. Now, of course, it's not actually strictly compulsory to use these stones. You can just walk straight by them if you like, and they are there to just give you a hint if you need it. So
they don't pop up automatically and force you to look at them?
No, you're not forced to, Fidel. So you can just walk straight by and just carry on your journey if you like, and perhaps if you want to have that advice, you're a newer player, or perhaps you've never played Zelda before, or you're a younger player or something like that, you can take advantage of the Sheikah stones. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say, old boy. I'm not entirely against them on second thoughts, old chap. They might come in handy for some players. So
well, it's true. Okay, you're saying you don't have to actually go and access them, as it were, but if they're there, it's very tempting to hit them,
It's very tempting, of course, that's right. But I suppose it does stop you from going to the internet and looking up the answer, perhaps on FAQ or walkthrough guide. So
true,
there you are. But indeed, Fails, that also brings us quite smoothly on to another point. Now, this is the first time you'll see a Sheikah stone. Guess who you'll see along with it?
Yes, indeed. Now, you see along with it, of course, the Happy Mask salesman chap, I believe.
The creepy, spooky, weird and eerie Happy Mask salesman, that's right.
Exactly. Weird, eerie, spooky and sort of, hang on, who is this chap? Why is he looking at me that way? Why isn't he really saying anything? And I feel a bit awkward now.
And why isn't he selling me any masks for some reason?
Why is he saying, yes, all the sort of things that you felt with the last game in the Game 64.
Yes, and he was a very strange character, of course. He wasn't necessarily inherently evil. I don't think he's evil per se when you first meet him, but of course, there's just something a bit off about him, I think. He's not all there, really.
Well, yes, indeed.
Anyway, you may be interested to learn, fellows, that this fellow we're talking about right now, the Happy Mask salesman, he's actually got some new dialogue in this game.
Well, he has. He's very, very unusual. Not unusual. I suppose it is unusual in a way.
To my mind,
he's talking to us.
He, of course, yes, he had new dialogue, which, of course, must have been added by the new localization team and the new team working on the game. And, of course, it's been necessary for him to have new dialogue because he's going to tell you about some new features himself. Now, I thought that was a strange choice to have such a crucial story character telling you about game features, and perhaps I thought maybe Tail could have done it, old chap. Or was it Tattle? No, Tattle. I beg your pardon, it's Tattle, that's right.
Tails, isn't it, in Sonic?
Yes, Tail is the other fairy, I think. It's Tattle, your fairy, that's
Tattle,
right.
yes.
But anyway, I thought perhaps Tattle could have told you, but indeed it seems they've chosen the Masked Man to do this. Now, what are his lines? Well, he gets through the usual lines of saying, I'm begging you to get my mask back, etc., and so forth. And then he goes, perhaps slightly in a break from character, to say, oh my, I nearly forgot. While you were gone, I found one of these. It's one of the fancy notebooks the local brats carry around. Perhaps the imp dropped it. I mean, I have no use for things like this, so just take it, use it now. Only good things could come of it, I say.
Yes, indeed.
So he has these sort of strange and different lines,
So
do you think that really fits with his character, old chap?
Well, I don't know what the chaps and chappets think as well, but he's sort of talking, he's familiarising with Link there.
Yes.
And so Link can sort of perhaps make a bit of a bond with him there, sort of friendly language.
I see,
which
that's
perhaps
right.
wasn't there before.
No.
And takes away that eerie sort of perhaps feel, maybe.
little.
Maybe it doesn't, but maybe to the game.
I mean, he's telling us here, events you'll see will be added to your notebook automatically. This is the Happy Mask salesman of all people telling us. It's a bit like the Skull Kid telling us about it, old chap.
Well, yes, it's like one of those
strange.
Yes, it's like one of those characters that pop up and say, you are now here. If you press this on your controller, this will pop up and then you can access that to do this. But you see, the thing is actually using an in-game character here to do it. Who, familiar in the other game, but people know who he is. And of course, perhaps it takes away a bit from the character of the player himself. Or
of the NPC, that's right.
The NPC himself, I mean, yes.
It's rather strange, it would be a bit like, perhaps, I don't know, it's talking of Snake earlier, like Ocelot suddenly popping up and saying, well, you've got to do this and press this button here and go there. It's a bit strange, really, It's not perhaps entirely fitting.
Well, it isn't, but I suppose there's two ways to look at it. You could look at it that way that we've said, but also you could look at it for the people playing the game new, and I'm no doubt Nintendo want to sell a lot more, I think they will, of these games to people who haven't played Majora's Mask before.
Yes.
They might like the idea and familiarise with it, and maybe those that have played it before don't mind. Maybe they think, well, it's okay, but I'm sure there'll be some that perhaps think, well, as there always is, well, I don't like that, It
makes him less creepy, less spooky, or whatever.
Maybe, yes.
I mean, also, of course, as you did see there, you may have picked up on the fact he was giving us the Bomber's Notebook. And I mean, really, you should get the Bomber's Notebook from the Bombers themselves, really, as part of that quest. I mean, you shouldn't really be getting that from the Happy Mask salesman. But I think one of the main devs of this game did say that they want you to have the Bomber's Notebook on purpose, because they said many players missed it before, so this time they've made sure you have to pick it up as part of the story. And
so perhaps
that's fair enough. I mean, that's understandable, because it does form a central part of the game this time, but it just surprises me that the Happy Mask salesman himself would give you the notebook. It doesn't seem to fit with the story, old chap.
Well, no, indeed. Perhaps they thought, as you say there, that they were concerned that the player was perhaps a little bit too distant before, and they wanted the player to actually find the different things, and so they've said, right, we'll make sure he definitely finds it by giving it to the happy salesman.
Yes, I mean, it is quite easy to miss that notebook, perhaps if you're just blasting through the game looking for the next thing to do, so this time they've made sure you're going to see it. A rather interesting choice, I say.
Well, it is interesting, and rather, perhaps even a little tiny bit controversial, but we'll have to wait and see what people think about.
Who knows, Fails? But now we shall move on our attention, Fails, to a brand new feature in this game, which is all new. You can't find this in the N64 one because it's just not there.
Well, it isn't, and I think as we go through this, with the changes we said, the different way they're doing things, different hiding places, etc., so forth, and now, as we're going to talk about now, something entirely different, it actually makes the game rather exciting, actually, I think.
It is quite exciting, Elchip. Now, of course, Fails, we are, of course, talking in the Southern Swamp, Southern Swamp fishing hole, Fails. That's right, you can go fishing now.
The Southern Swamp, the fishing hole. Now, you can actually, as you say there, go fishing in this version, the 3DS version.
That's right.
Which, of course, you couldn't do before.
No, you most certainly couldn't, old chap. As well as the shooting gallery, next to that shooting gallery there is now, of course, the fishing hole, and I understand there's also one waiting to be found in the Great Bay too.
Is it really?
Apparently, old chap, yes.
Right.
It's quite interesting. Now, of course, the fishing minigame first appeared for the 3DS version in Ocarina of Time.
I remember it, yes indeed. I remember that. It was rather fun. You'd sit there and fish, see if you could get a little fishy or not.
I caught some good ones in my time, old chap. Some rather fun ones back in the day. But anyway, in the fishing hole here, there are now posters of different types of fish that you can catch, which appear to be based on the Majora's Mask Clock Town residents and kais and things like that.
Aha! So that's a rather interesting way to do it then.
That's right.
Yes, go on.
The proprietor of the fishing hole is, of course, similar to the chap from Ocarina of Time, although this time he doesn't seem to wear a hat, so that means you can't snag his hat using the fishing rod. But I did try, I say. I tried to get it to know.
Ah, yes, you used to be able to snag his hat in Ocarina.
You did, it's quite
right.
fun. He'll give you the choice of either the standard fishing rod or the fishing rod with the sinking lure, depending on which kind of fish you'd like to catch.
Aha! So there's choices of fishing rod and indeed choices of fish.
That's right.
And then you go to take on your challenge in the lake, I presume.
That's right.
What happens then?
Well, you cast your line into the lake, your float into the lake, and of course you can then gather various types of fish like Terminian, I don't know, carp and that sort of thing. I think I'm not sure what they are, old chap. They're small fish anyway.
Yes, small fish.
Anyway, of course, using the said fish, you can then get an idea, I don't know, of your best and previous fish records, i.e. 12 centimetres, 7 centimetres or whatnot, but it appears, at least through initial playtests, that there don't appear to be any immediate rewards for catching a single fish.
Ah, so they're not actually going to give you, you get so many fish perhaps and you get a couple of hearts or heart pieces or something like that.
I don't know.
Or some sort of bonus or something.
To be honest, it's too early at this stage to tell you for certain whether or not there's a heart piece available, but I didn't see any possibility for one there, I must say. Not myself, anyway.
Well, maybe because we're in the early stages, it could, develop into something as you go along, perhaps.
Yes.
As you catch bigger fish, rarer fish, or whatever
Yes.
it might be.
I think so, but certainly if you catch a small Terminian fish, he'll just sort of say, I don't know, you caught a fish, that's great, this is a lively one, and he puts it straight back into the water, so you can't actually take it to the fisherman chap to have it inspected, unfortunately.
I wonder if it keeps a record of the fish you've got.
I don't know, but perhaps I think if you were to catch the fish who are pictured in the posters on the wall, maybe you might get some rewards then, old boy. That's an interesting theory, I think.
Yes.
Now, another thing I noticed in the fishing hole also was that there's a waterfall in that fishing hole, and that's quite a suspicious place, I have to say, because underneath the waterfall there are some reeds which appear to be blocking or at least obscuring a hidden entranceway. So I don't know if you can go under there too, perhaps.
Maybe. We'll have to wait and see on that one. That's rather interesting.
It's
but
rather
the whole
interesting.
idea of fishing there, no doubt, if it's in the game, people are going to want, perfectionists, if you like, are going to want to go and they do the fishing and catch every fish on the, that you can.
Oh yes, that's right, Elby. And of course, if you do wish to fish, bear in mind it's rather pricey, 50 rupees to get in, so make sure you have enough cash first.
Indeed, yes, indeed. You have to make sure you catch fish for that price, I think.
Well, I think so, indeed. You've got to get your money's worth, rather, you know.
So that's a rather fun little thing they've added there.
That was quite a fun thing, and then we come to a rather, shall we say, more sinister change in this version that many people have commented on, and rightfully so. What am I talking about, Bertie, old chap?
Well, I think you surely must be discussing or talking about there the moon's face.
The moon's terrifying face.
Yes.
That's right, Fidels. The moon's face has been completely changed. Most notably, of course, during the cutscene where it crashes into Terminus so horrifically, I say, the moon now sports a horrible sort of flaring nostrils, wide grinning teeth, and much more definition on his face overall. He really does look very menacing.
He does indeed, yes indeed. So perhaps we're making up for the friendliness and sort of, it's all okay of the happy salesman we spoke of earlier, with this terrible, horrible looking moon that's just about to smash into the earth.
I think so, Elby. Certainly, the moon this time sports many new features that he just didn't have before, and his overall appearance is far more menacing than it ever was in Majora's Mask on the 64.
Well, I think it looks a lot better.
Yes, I think it does, Elby. It certainly is an improvement, and this time when you look up in the sky and see this thing, you think, oh my goodness me, what is that monstrosity?
Well, certainly.
It's not really even vaguely moon-shaped anymore, old chap, in as much it now has a clearly defined eyes and nostrils and mouth. It's very much a face in the sky.
Well, I think since it's a central part of what you're doing within the game, the moon, then I think they played on it and said, yes, we're going to make this just really impact the player, as it were.
I think it does, and if you ask my opinion, I think the moon in Majora's Mask 3D is more scary and frightening, as opposed to the one in Majora's Mask 64, which was again just eerie and spooky. And when you looked up in the sky, you thought, oh no, that thing's going to hit the planet, this is terrible, I've got to save the world. But this time you think, oh my goodness me, it's going to blow the whole thing up, old chap.
Well, exactly, most
So
certainly
you get scared, you know, and
Yes,
I
indeed.
think that's what they've gone for this time.
Well, yes, I think it works. I don't know what people think about there. Whether they think it's a good or not so good change, I think it's a good change. Makes it add to the game, I think.
I think it does, old boy. It certainly, as you say, does make up for any, shall we say, hand-holding and slight tweaking of dialogue that we may have discussed earlier.
Yes.
And also, of course, decoding the sort of battle pose underneath the approaching moon there. Certainly, it's an interesting change, and I think on the whole, we may have broken even here, old chap. I don't think we've had any overall loss so far.
No, I don't think so. No, I think they've added to the game. I think it's shaping up to be a very exciting game with good fun things added to it, and that's what we all want.
That's right, and also, of course, Fidelis, for your inspection here, we did indeed take the liberty of going to the end of time and seeing the whole scene where the moon crashes into the town, because it's not really Majora's Mask until you've seen that scene, let's face it, old chap.
Yes, indeed, no.
The tragic carpenter saying, if you're going to fall, then fall already. And
Yes.
the guard, of course, saying, oh no, I can't leave my post until the captain's orders come through, and he's terrified, but he's trying to be brave in the face of this impossible odds of the moon. And of course, after the moon does go eventually crashing down into the doomed town, there is a small change there.
Yes, indeed, there is.
Yes, indeed, I say. Of course, you don't just get to see the rather beautifully rendered new cutscene. It does look very impressive on the 3DS, I have to say, old chap.
Yes.
Very well done with the new effects, and particularly in the 3D there.
I think
But
so.
after that cutscene, you get a bit of storybook.
Well, you do. A most sort of strange sort of way to go about it, perhaps, but and certainly different. You start to get some storybooks after that. You've just had this huge thing impact. It smashed it all. You think, oh, I can't believe it. It just, well, what's happened? And you're just trying to think and soak it all in. And all of a sudden, we've got storybooks.
That's right, and usually, of course, the Happy Mask salesman will just say, you've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? And it's all this mysterious, everything's gone back to the start again. But this time, in this game, they've actually given you a bit of new dialogue here. And it says, and so the angry moon fell from the sky, annihilating this world and its many inhabitants. All items and such gained these last 3 days are lost.
Ah!
And then it says, of course, about restarting your adventure by pressing the home button to go back to the home menu.
Aha!
That's hand-holdy, old chap. That is, I have to say.
Well, maybe that one. Yes, there seems to be a little bit of hand-holding there.
I mean, you know.
An unusual or strange sort of place to put the information, I suppose, just after that big, impactful cutscene.
Yes.
But nevertheless, they've done it. They've done it for a reason. Perhaps they think it adds to the game. It can help people out. We don't know.
Maybe they think the cutscene is, of course, very scary, and so perhaps they think, well, you know, we're not going to go in too heavy here. We'll just say to the gamer, you know, well, it's sort of game over now, but if you like, you can just press the home screen and start again, you'll say.
Well, maybe, but I don't think people need to be too pampered, as it were, in terms of scariness, because, you know, there's a lot more scary games out there, I think.
Yes, I know. Maybe Nintendo were thinking, well, you know, perhaps younger audiences could play this too, and we don't want them to get too scared about it, you know, so we'll just say restart using the home menu button.
Well, it's possible, but they might not have thought that at all. They might just thought, well, it's a good place to add it, so we'll put it there. We don't
Yes,
know.
I mean,
like the Happy Salesman words and things.
That's right, old chap. Really, I
Yes.
mean, what do you make of these things, fellows? We have, of course, seen some new dialogue here. It's, is it for the better or the worse? Well, either way, it's there, so what can we say, fellows?
Well, yes, indeed.
Now, of course, fellows, another rather important technical change this time is with regard to the saving system in Termina.
Ah, yes, indeed. Now, apparently, with the old owl statues, they used to be hit with swords.
That's right. You'd see an owl statue, and if you went up to it and sort of had a close look at it, it just looks like something ordinary at first, but should you strike it with your sword in the N64 version, it of course springs to life. But this time, you don't have to strike the statue with your sword.
It would seem that they have changed that, and you don't do it, so it's another change.
It's another change. You just walk up to the owl statue, press the A button, it spreads its wings with a little flourish there, and you can save your game. And I don't think it's a temporary save either, unlike the 64 version. You can just save it then and there. Plus the fact, throughout the world of Termina, there are now brand new feather statues, which mean that you can save your game anytime you like.
So that's rather useful. So it means that you're not going to do necessarily long pieces or gameplay and then find out that you can't save it or whatever.
That's
They're
right.
all over the place, are they?
Yes, and of course the N64 version was a console game, so perhaps they took some more liberties there and said, well, we're going to limit the number of times you can save to when you play the Song of Time or when you talk to an owl statue, whereas this time it's much more free. It's not quite gone as far as to allow you to save anywhere, like you could in Ocarina of Time, by just pressing Start then Save. You can't do that here, but you can, of course, find these statues rather more readily than before.
Ah, yes, well, that's rather useful, I think. I don't think people will be too worried about that, whether they're going to hit it with the sword or just press the A button.
No.
You might prefer hitting with the sword, I suppose, but you're hitting lots of other things with the sword anyway, so not to worry.
Yes, that's right. Purists might say, well, you know, really, he should hit it with a sword, and perhaps it's a bit of a giveaway that you just walk up to it and press A, but
Yes.
if you ask me, that's not too much of a bad thing, old chap. It is, of course, much more convenient for those on the move.
Yes, most certainly. I think he's keeping the older players, not the older players, but the players that played it before, on their toes a bit with little changes and things which make it just a little bit different and a little bit more interesting.
I think so, boy. Like the changed Bomber Kid locations certainly a very big and catching out change, as it were.
Ah,
It'll catch
yes.
you out quite readily, I say. And then, of course, it is the 10th change in Ocarina of Time on the... the Majora's Mask! I'm so used to saying Ocarina of Time. It's Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask, honestly, it is, yes.
It is that. The 10th change in Majora's Mask on Nintendo 3DS is the location of the bank.
The bank?
The bank!
My goodness me, if you don't know where your bank is, you're going to be in right trouble.
Ah, now what you just said there is very true, because in this game, when you play the Song of Time to go back to the dawn of the first day, which you have to, otherwise the moon crashes into the world, you will lose all of your rupees. That's right, your money will be completely gone and lost forever, unless you have deposited it in the town bank. Now, if you place it into the bank, of course, you get to store it in there for safekeeping, and when you go back to it, the bank owner still recognizes your face, and he says, I see you have 250 rupees in the account balance.
He does indeed, yes, of course.
That's right.
Of course, you have to know where he is to do that.
That's right. Now, formerly, I understand he was in West Clocktown in a rather difficult-to-reach location and perhaps a bit out of the way. And actually, when I played the 64 version, I didn't even know about the chap until, at least 4 or 5 days into the game.
Yeah,
He's that hard to find. He's very much out of the way. But this time, he's actually sitting right there in South Clocktown, just on the other side of the central clock tower. He's just right there waiting to be used.
So they've made it rather more easy to access the bank. And
That's right.
They've probably done it similarly to because of some of the reasons they've done the other things we've spoken about, because they think it will help the player and perhaps make the gaming experience more interesting and make sure they jolly well find the bloody thing.
I think so. They've made sure on purpose that you're going to find the Bomber's Notebook whichever way you go through the game, and also now there's a very high probability that you're going to talk to the strange green man who's clapping his knees in the centre of Clocktown. And
Yes.
he's, of course, the banker, whereas you may not necessarily have gone to West Clocktown to find him before.
Exactly, no indeed.
But there you go, fellows. There are certainly some very large changes. We've gone through 10 here, and what are your thoughts on those? And no doubt there are many more, which we shall be covering soon, I say.
Well, most certainly, yes. Tell us what you think about those, about the graphics you've seen on the gameplay you've been watching as we've been discussing all these things.
Yes.
Yes, I think, myself, I think it looks to be a rather fun game, lots of little changes, so you're looking forward to playing it, perhaps, in terms of not going and saying, well, it's just the same as before, but it's just on the 3DS. It's not only on the 3DS, you've got better graphics, there's changes in it to make it interesting.
Yes.
I think they're trying to strike the right balance and perhaps have found the right balance for it.
Yes, and if you're going to ask me the question, does this game feel fresh? I'd have to say, yes, it does feel fresh. It's got a graphical overhaul, lots of subtle changes, and overall it's very enjoyable to play, Fidels, although, of course, we'll have more on that for you soon, I say.
Oh, we most certainly will, yes indeed. And if you've enjoyed looking at this, don't forget also over on our other channel, we have a walkthrough we're doing of Captain Toad. If you like that sort of thing, you like Nintendo, go over there and have a look at that as well.
That's a very
be sure
fun
to
game
come
to-
back here, though, for more news on this.
Indeed, I say. We'll have more news and no doubt gameplay for you soon from the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D, but until then, this has been Game Chapel and Birdie bringing you some rather interesting changes, I say.
Oh, yes.
Join us again, fellas, on the next exciting Out of My Word. Until then.